Growing a small fruit tree in a pot is one of the most overlooked things you can do in a limited space. Most people assume that such things require a large garden, deep soil, and years of waiting. None of these are verified facts. Some of the world's most productive fruit trees thrive perfectly on balconies, terraces, small spaces, and in pots. In this video, we'll explore 5 fruit trees that thrive in small spaces, and for each one, I'll explain not only which tree you should grow, but also what's actually happening inside the plant, including the key points that most people completely misunderstand, to ensure you succeed in growing them in pots. Number 1. The dwarf lemon tree. Most people believe citrus belongs in the ground in warm climates. That is only true for full-sized varieties. The dwarf lemon tree, specifically the Meyer lemon, was essentially built for container life, and it performs better in a pot than most trees on this list. The mechanism is straightforward. Dwarf lemon trees are grafted onto dwarfing rootstocks. The rootstock controls the tree's ultimate size, while the graft above it produces full-sized, full-flavored lemons. The tree stays compact. The fruit does not. The fastest test: check the base of your dwarf lemon tree's trunk for a slight swelling or a change in bark texture about 10 centimeters above the soil. That is the graft union, the point where the productive variety meets the dwarfing rootstock. If you see it, your tree has the genetics to stay container-friendly for years. The biggest mistake with Meyer lemon in container gardening is overwatering. Citrus roots need to dry slightly between waterings. Consistently wet soil suffocates the roots and triggers yellowing leaves, a condition most people misdiagnose as a nutrient deficiency. It is almost always a watering problem. Use a terracotta pot. Terracotta is porous. It allows moisture to evaporate through the walls, which naturally prevents overwatering. Feed with a citrus-specific fertilizer every 3 weeks during the growing season. Stop here for a second, because what comes next is the reason most people give up on growing fruit trees in pots. They choose the wrong tree. The right choice changes everything, and that is just the first tree. What comes next is the one most people never even consider for a container. Subscribe if you want to know why it works better in a pot than in the ground. Number 2. The fig tree. Most people think that fig trees need open space to bear fruit. That is, they need to be able to send their roots deeper into the ground. But that's not the case. A fig tree grown in a pot usually produces more fruit than one planted in the ground. The reason for this is something most people never learn. When a fig tree's roots are confined within a pot, the tree redirects its energy elsewhere. This results in more fruit. Instead of expanding its root system outward, it directs its resources upward toward fruit production. This is known in plant science as the root restriction response. Limited root space redirects the tree's energy from growth toward fruit production. Comparisons have shown that trees growing in confined spaces produce more productive fruit. The quickest test: press your finger into the soil closest to the edge of the pot. If the roots are circling the inner wall, your fig tree is ready to bear fruit. Don't repot it yet. This root restriction is working in your favor. The most common mistake is choosing a pot that's too large. A pot wider than 50 centimeters leaves too much room for the roots, causing the tree to focus on growth rather than bearing fruit. Start with a 40-centimeter pot. Choose a self-pollinating variety, such as brown turkey or celeste. For your fig tree, choose the sunniest spot in the room. Figs need at least 6 hours of direct sunlight per day. Without sunlight, they will grow, but won't bear fruit. The next tree surprises most people because almost no one associates it with growing fruit trees in pots. However, once you understand the biology behind it, the results make perfect sense. Number 3. The columnar apple tree. Most people think apple trees are impossible in small spaces. That is true for standard apple trees. Columnar apple trees are a completely different story, and one of the best fruit trees for small spaces available today. Columnar apple trees grow vertically, not outward. Instead of spreading branches, they produce short fruiting spurs directly along a single central stem. The entire tree grows in a narrow column, rarely exceeding 60 centimeters in width. A single columnar apple tree in a container takes up less floor space than a floor lamp. The science behind this growth pattern is genetic. Columnar apple trees carry a specific genetic mutation that suppresses lateral branch growth entirely. Every spur on that central stem is a potential fruit-bearing site. In a good season, a columnar apple tree in a 50-liter container can produce up to 15 kilograms of full-sized apples. The fastest test? Look at where the fruit forms. On a standard tree, fruit hangs from branch tips. On a columnar apple tree, fruit forms directly on the main trunk in tight clusters. If your tree is doing this, the genetics are working exactly as intended. The mistake most people make is choosing a variety that requires cross-pollination. Always choose a self-fertile columnar variety. Waltz, ballerina, or flamenco are reliable choices. Without pollination, the tree flowers beautifully and produces nothing. Number 4. The Bonanza peach tree. Peaches have a reputation for being difficult. In the ground, that reputation is partly deserved. In container gardening, the dynamic changes completely, and the Bonanza peach is one of the most rewarding fruit trees for small spaces you can grow on a balcony or patio. The reason Bonanza peach works so well in pots comes down to temperature control. Peach trees need a specific number of cold hours during winter, called chill hours, to break dormancy and produce fruit the following season. In open gardens, late frosts after dormancy breaks can destroy an entire year's harvest in a single night. In a container, you have control. When a late frost is forecast, you move the tree. That simple mobility eliminates the single biggest risk in peach cultivation, and it is the core advantage of growing fruit trees in pots that most guides never mention. The fastest test: count the swelling buds on your Bonanza peach tree in late winter. If buds are swelling evenly across all branches, the tree received adequate chill hours and will fruit normally. If only a few buds swell while most remain dormant, the tree did not receive enough cold, and that season's harvest will be significantly reduced. Feed your Bonanza peach with a high potassium fertilizer as fruit begins to form. Potassium directly supports fruit size and sugar development. This single step separates a productive container tree from a decorative one. The last tree on this list is the most overlooked in small space gardening, and it may be the highest yield fruit tree you can grow in a pot. Number 5. The dwarf mulberry tree. Most people never consider the dwarf mulberry tree for container gardening. That is a significant oversight, because a dwarf mulberry in a pot is arguably the most productive option among fruit trees in pots for balcony gardens and small spaces. The biology behind mulberry's productivity is straightforward. Mulberry trees are extremely vigorous. They want to grow, and they want to produce. When root space is restricted in a container, the same root restriction response we saw in the fig tree applies here. Energy shifts from vegetative growth to fruiting. A mature dwarf mulberry in a 60-liter container can produce several kilograms of fruit per season with almost no intervention. The fastest test: run your finger along a young branch in early spring. Mulberry produces fruit on both old and new wood. If you feel small, bumpy nodules along last year's growth as well as this year's new shoots, your dwarf mulberry tree is setting up for a heavy harvest from 2 separate fruiting systems simultaneously. The most important thing to know about dwarf mulberry in container gardening is harvesting. Mulberry fruit does not hold on the tree once ripe. It drops within hours. Place a light-colored cloth under the container during peak season. The falling fruit will tell you exactly when harvest is happening. Choose Illinois. Ever-bearing mulberry or Isai for reliable compact growth. Water consistently. Mulberries are less drought-tolerant than fig trees or Meyer lemon. In hot weather, check the soil daily. These 5 trees, the fig tree, the Meyer lemon, the Columnar apple tree, the Bonanza peach, and the Dwarf mulberry, are not compromises. They are not smaller versions of something better. In containers, with the right variety and the right approach, each one produces real, full-flavored fruit in spaces most people assume are too small for any tree at all. If growing fruit trees in pots has ever seemed out of reach, this channel exists to change that. Every week, one mystery solved. Next week, we are covering 5 plants that will transform your landscape in May. Subscribe so you do not miss it. And if this video answered something you have been wondering about, share it with someone who has been told their space is too small to grow fruit. That idea is worth challenging.